How we doing, Kipsters? Mr. A here. It is important that I use a marker that works. Here we go. Good to see y'all. We are still in our measurement unit. So far we've talked about measuring with centimeter cubes, very small items such as thumbtacks. These are centimeter cubes. You can tell the size of a centimeter. It's very small. 1 centimeter cube. 10 centimeter cubes. We talked about using rulers, which come out to be about 30 centimeters long. We even introduced this long one down at the bottom. This is 100 centimeters, which is 1 meter. Okay, so 1 centimeter, small. Used to measure small things. We talked about our mark and move strategy, where you line it up, you mark it, and you move it, and you mark it, and you move it, and you mark it, and you move it, and you mark it, and you move it. We used 1 centimeter to measure smaller things, like a fork or a comb, or maybe a key. That would be used to measure with 1 centimeter. If it gets a little bit bigger, we might need a 10 centimeter long measuring tool. Okay, this is a base 10 block. That's 10 centimeters. Or if it gets even bigger, we have to use our ruler. We're going to be using our ruler some today. Okay, so that's kind of what we talked about. We talked about 1 centimeter being small. We talked about 10 centimeters being a little bit bigger. And then we also talked about 100 centimeters. 100 of these little guys. 100 centimeters. That equals 1 meter. And this is my 1 meter stick. You see all the way from the top, all the way to the bottom, and it is 100 centimeters. I actually made that one myself. Okay, just a little bit of review before we get started. We're going to start with our application problem. You're expected to take notes. You're expected to turn in pictures of your work. So here's our first problem. It is an RDW problem. So read, draw, and write. Here's the first question. It says, Ethan has 8 fewer playing cards than Tristan. So Ethan is one of my characters. Tristan is one of my characters. Ethan has 8 fewer playing cards than Tristan. Tristan has 50. Tristan has 50. How many does Ethan have? So we read it closely. We looked at some of the important information. We want to know, how many does Ethan have? How many does Ethan have? So I'm going to draw my picture. We did the reading part. Now we're going to draw it. Ethan has 8 fewer. We don't really know how many he has yet. Tristan, I'm going to put a T. Tristan has 50. Tristan has 50 cards. Ethan has 8 fewer. So when I draw my picture for Ethan, it's going to be a little bit smaller. This is Ethan. He has 8 fewer. We don't really know how much it is, though. We just know that he has 8 fewer. So if I draw it, it goes all the way. Now this space, this is 8. We need to figure out what is Ethan. Okay, so let's draw our picture. Tristan has, let's go, T has 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Ethan has less, 8 less. So Ethan has 8 less. So we need to do T minus 8. So Tristan minus 8. Now instead of drawing these as a 10, let's draw them 10 individual. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's scoot this over for you guys. Minus 8. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 50 minus 8 equals. And that would be what Ethan equals. So 50 minus 8. Let's take it away. Minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 50 minus 8. So it this way. 50. Let's break it apart. Let's pull 10 out. Remember, break it apart, decompose. 10 minus 8. Now we have, if I break out 50, I have 10 on this side. I would have to have 40 on this side. Now I do my 10 minus 8. 10 minus 8 equals 2. That's a partner of 10. 10 minus 8 minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 left. Now I have 40 plus 2. Remember, we add it back together. 40 plus 2 equals 42. And then I box it up, but I'm not done. I did the R. I did the D. Now I have to do the W. So my W, my sentence will look like this. Ethan has 42 cards. Period. There's my final answer. So we did an application problem. Super cool. Easy. I'm going to slide that aside. Write it down. Take pictures. Remember, read, draw, write. You have to send our pictures in through Class Dojo. So let me go ahead and erase this. And we'll move on to our next little portion of the video. That's an application problem. It's read, draw, write. Okay? All right. Second step. Vocabulary review. We've talked about measurement. Measuring the length of things using centimeters, 10 centimeters, a 30 centimeter ruler, even a meter stick. We talked about an estimate being a smart guess. A smart guess. So I think that a smart guess for this length of a fork, if that's 10 centimeters, I'm using this as my benchmark. A benchmark. If that's 10, I think this is going to be about, I think that might be an estimate would be about 20 centimeters. Now, I don't know yet because I haven't actually measured it, but that would be an estimate. I'm just using this to kind of look closely. That's going to be about 20 if I think about it. Or if I use this as my estimate, I could think that, well, this might be about 20 cubes altogether. Now that's an estimate. It's a smart guess because we use a benchmark. For an actual measurement, we need to get the exact measure. For the exact measure, I'm going to start using my ruler a little bit. Okay? For the exact measure of the fork, you can see that this was 30 centimeters. You see what I did? I lined up all three of these so you can see that these are 30 centimeters. Now I'm just going to use my ruler, my 30 centimeter ruler, to measure. Now when I measure, I'm going to line it up the very end and I'm going to put a little bit of a mark. That's actually going to be my first end point. Using a mark as my first end point. And then I'm going to mark the end of it as my second end point. I've made my two end points because they're at the front and the back. Now I'm going to go ahead and make my line segment. I'm going to draw it just like this. End point to end point. Now I can actually measure. When I measure, remember, I start with the 0. Don't start with the 1. Everybody wants to start with the 1. Start with the 0. And I measure, it's going from 0. If I look closely, it goes all the way to right between 18 and 19. So I'm going to say my exact measurement is 18 centimeters. Okay? My exact measurement. This is the actual measurement. Actual. 3-syllable word. Estimate. 3-syllable word. My estimate, what I first said for this fork, my estimate, I lined it up. I said, using this as my benchmark, a 10 centimeter cube was my benchmark. A 1 centimeter cube was also able to be with my benchmark. So I used that as my benchmark, and I said it was about 20. That was my estimate. My estimate for my fork was about 20. But my actual measurement was 18. This is the actual measurement, and it's a lot more exact. Okay? Those are some of our vocabulary words for estimate. For actual, we talked about centimeters, 10 centimeters, 30 centimeters, 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. This is a 1 meter stick used to measure much, much bigger things. If we're also measuring something small, like our key, let's think about our estimate for our key. Let's go ahead and erase that. Let's go ahead and erase this. An actual measurement. First, we're going to take our estimate, and I'm going to say my estimate for my key is going to be, if that's 1, and I'm going to go all the way from one key, the end of it, to the end of it, I'm going to say that this is going to be about 5 centimeters. That's my estimate. Now, I'm going to actually go ahead and measure my key. I'm going to get an actual measurement. Okay? Let's line it up from the key ring all the way. One endpoint. Next endpoint. Made my 2 endpoints. Let's make them a little bigger. And now I'm going to make my line to connect, starting at the 0 all the way to the 8 centimeter line. My actual measurement equals 8 centimeters. So notice the difference. The difference. 8 centimeters was the actual one. 5 centimeters was my estimate. So my difference between my 2 measurements, my difference. You say, well, what's the difference, Mr. A? What's the difference? Anytime you hear that word difference, it's usually meaning subtraction. So let's subtract them both. So my difference would be 8 minus 5. 8 minus 5, 3 centimeters was my difference. If I start comparing my estimate to my actual measurement, the difference was 3 centimeters. Okay? Next up. Okay, now I'll clear out more of this stuff for you guys. Here we go. Let's get a little bit more room to work. Okay, all right. Now, this is your problem set. You're going to face a lot of our problems. I'm going to switch to a green marker just because I didn't use a green marker for my lines. We're going to take an estimate on my red line, an estimate on my orange, estimate on my gray, estimate on my brown, and an estimate on my yellow. I'm going to use a benchmark to help me. You can use different types of benchmarks. This is one benchmark. This is my centimeter benchmark. Okay? You don't actually have to measure it when you're taking an estimate. Our estimate, we're just using this as a benchmark. So if this is my benchmark, there's 10. I'm not even really going to line it up closely. I think my estimate for this red line, I think that's going to be 6 centimeters. Okay, 6 centimeters using these 2 as my benchmark. This one right here, that looks like it's about 2 of my 10 centimeter cube. So I'm going to use 20, 10, 20, 2 base 10 blocks. My third estimate, notice I'm doing all the estimates first. Estimate is just a smart guess. All the estimates first. So here's my gray one. That's going to be, I'm going to say it's a little bit longer than a 10 centimeter. I'm going to say 11 centimeters on that one. My estimate on my brown, I actually think that one looks exactly like a 10 centimeter cube. So I'm going to say 10. And this one, my short one, I'm going to say the yellow. Now when I highlighted, I went a little further. We got to only go to that. I'm going to say my yellow estimate is 5 centimeters. Okay. I'm going to switch to a different color. I'm going to switch to black to do my actual estimates. When I do my actual estimates, I need to use a measuring tool. Okay, maybe you use mark and move as your strategy. Maybe you just use a 10 centimeter, or maybe you use an actual ruler. I'm going to use the ruler. Done with my fork. Okay, so I start at the 0, I line it up, and it goes all the way. Oh wow, I got it right. This one actually was 6 centimeters. So my estimate was the same as my actual length. That can happen sometimes. Let's do this one. Okay. So there was no difference between my estimate and my actual length, because if I take my difference, I would do 6 minus 6 equals, there was no difference in my two measurements. Let's do the orange one. I'm going from 0 all the way to 15 centimeters. So this one was 15 centimeters. If I compare the two lines and I take the difference, 20 minus 15 equals, now I have 5. 20 minus 15, 5 centimeters was my difference. Okay? If I'm comparing the actual length to my estimate. Next one. Okay, now I'm doing the gray line. Let's do like this. Let's fold these to get out of your way. There we go. Okay. On my gray estimate, I had 11 centimeters. When I go ahead and actually measure it out, 0. Oh, I got it. I got another one. 11 centimeters. 11 centimeters was my actual measurement. So 11 was the estimate and 11 was the actual. 11 minus 11, 0 difference. I got it right. Next one. I think the brown line is 10 centimeters. 10 centimeters. And it is actually, line it up at the 0 all the way to the 8. It is actually 8 centimeters. Now I need to compare. 10 minus 8 equals, we know that my difference between my estimate and my actual length was 2 centimeters. This was 0 centimeters. And my last one, moving on to the yellow line. I estimated that it was 5 centimeters. I used this as a benchmark. Now I'm going to actually measure it. And right again. Good. Right again. I got it. 5, right to the 5. 5 centimeters. Now the reason, Mr. Agnew, why are you getting them right correctly? Why are you getting them so correct? Well, the reason that I'm able to make good estimates is because I was using my benchmarks. I was using my tools with me right here just to kind of look. Okay? It's really hard to make good estimates if you don't use benchmarks. So I'm writing benchmarks real big for you down here. That's what we call a reasonable guess. Okay? It's a reasonable guess or a reasonable estimate. Okay? Alright. We're going to move on. We got another activity. Okay? Measuring estimates and comparing the two lines. So here's how we're going to do this. All I'm going to do is I'm going to call this line A. Line A. I'm just using the ruler to make straight lines. And line, let's go here, B. Notice I didn't really line it up. I just did like this. Line A and line B. Now switch to blue so you can see it a little bit easier. Line A. We're going to compare these two lines. So we're comparing these two lines. We compare. Is A longer? Is B longer? We know that A is shorter than B. We know that B is longer than A. Let's measure them out. Let's figure it out. Line A was 0 all the way to, this is 19. So line A is 19. Line B, let's take our measurement. Line B, we went from 0, always start at the 0, 0 up to, right here is 26 centimeters. 26 centimeters. One thing I probably forgot on my lines, I probably forgot my endpoints. Endpoints, from one endpoint to the next. So now to compare them, we're often going to use subtraction. Now to subtract, we're going to take the bigger number first. So to compare my two, let's clear this little area for you. 26 minus 19. 26 minus 19. Let's break this apart to make it a little bit easier. What if I pull 10 out? Now I have 10 and 9. 26 minus 10. So now I have 26 minus 10. If I take one of these 10s away, now I have 16. Now I only have to take away the 9 left because I already took away the 10. 16 take away 9, 7 centimeters. Box your answer. The difference between line A and line B, the difference is 7 centimeters. Let's do another one. We're comparing our lines. Maybe do 2 more. All right. Let's do my lines in blue and my work in black. One endpoint to the next endpoint. I'm gonna measure it out, draw my line. I'll measure this one out. Let's do a real short one. Measure it out, line it up. One endpoint to next endpoint. Let's call this one. Let's call this one line A. Let's call this one line B. Line A equals, measure it out, 0 to 17 centimeters. Line B, 0 to 12 centimeters. Okay, we can tell that line is A is longer, but how much longer? So to figure that out, we have to find the difference. If I say difference, we're always using subtraction. To subtract, we got to take from the bigger number minus the smaller number. Okay, we can break this up if we need to also. Let's pull 10 out, 2 out. Okay, 17 minus 10. 17 minus 10. 7. 7 minus 2. Difference should be 5 centimeters. If you don't quite trust your math here and you're a little confused, you can always draw a picture. Let's do 17. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I'm going to cross them off with the blue so you can see. I need to cross off a total of 12. So let's go 5, 10, and now 2 more, 11, 12. What's left? 5 is our actual answer. Good job. So the difference between the two lines when we compare them, 17 minus 12, 5 centimeters. Uno más, amigos. Uno más, amigos. This is comparing lines. Now, all of these have been using centimeters. We haven't used any meter sticks yet because we don't have objects that are 100 centimeters long. Another blue line. One endpoint. Next endpoint. Another endpoint. Let's do a little over. Next endpoint. Okay? Draw my lines. Draw my lines. Okay? Back to my black. Line A, line B. Line A. Now guys, you can always pause the video and go back, okay? This will be on your Google Classroom. If I'm going a little too fast, you can always pause it and go back whenever you need to. Okay? Line A on this one equaled 12 centimeters. Line B, we know the line B is longer. We can tell right away. Line B equals 22 centimeters. We need to figure out the difference. 22 minus 12 equals 22 minus 12. Let's pull this out. 10, 2. Now we have 22 minus 10. All I'm doing is taking away one of these 10s. If I take away one 10, I only have one left because there was 2 to start. Okay, when I think about my T-chart, 10s and 1s, there was 2 10s and 2 1s. We took away one of the 10s. Now instead of 2, now we have 1. So this is 12. And now I need to take away 2 more. Minus 2 equals 10 centimeters. If you don't quite trust your math, you can always draw it out. Let's see if I can draw it out. 10, 20, 21, 22. Minus 12. Minus 10, 11, 12. What's left? There was my 10 centimeters. Okay? This is the picture for this. 10 centimeters. It's so much quicker than having to draw all 22 out. Okay? Nice. So we compared some lines. We talked about estimates. We talked about actual measurements. Your assignment. I need estimates for these measurements. Okay? Estimate for a comb. Estimate for a comb. Now you're going to write your estimated length. An estimate for a fork. Estimate for a fork. Notice those objects are about the same. We actually did the fork in the video. An estimate for a school bus. Oh man, Mr. A, a school bus. It doesn't make any sense to be using very, very small centimeter cubes to measure an entire school bus where tons of kids can fit in. So don't use cubes, don't use centimeters. It probably wouldn't make sense to use a 10 centimeter stick. It probably wouldn't even make sense to use a 30 centimeter ruler. I would definitely, for making my estimate, I would use my meter stick. This is my meter stick. It is 100 centimeters long. Okay? How many meters do you think the school bus might be? What would be an estimate for your key? You probably wouldn't use the meter on this one. You would probably use a centimeter. We actually did the key. Now I want to see if you can do an estimate on that. A door. So whether it's your bedroom door, your classroom door, your house door, what would an estimate for your door be? So some of these are going to be centimeters. I think the comb would be centimeters. We already did the fork. I think the school bus would be in meters. How many though? How many? How many? How many centimeters? And then on the door, what would you use? Would you use a meter stick? Or would you use a centimeter cube? Or would you use a ruler? For a door, something really, really tall. Other objects are bigger objects, you'd probably be using a meter stick. I've given you a ton of hints, guys. A ton of hints. Send me your pictures on Dojo. Send Dojo pictures of your estimates. Okay, you might need to make a little bit of a chart like that. Any work that you have, send me your pictures, okay? Very, very proud of you, friends. We'll be going over this in class today and possibly tomorrow. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know. Bye-bye.